We ended last episode getting into the reality of starting a farm, how stressful it can be. When you look at your financial position in this, I'll zoom back a little bit. There's two paths to starting a business, probably more, but we'll just simplify it down to two. One is I start a business and I need that business to work right now. I think you're in that category of
Yeah, for
there's
sure.
not a lot of buffer, there's not a lot of runway. The other approach would be to farmers that I've talked to. Tony Barlow is one that comes to mind where he has a job and they started their farm on the side and they've just chose to grow it really slowly. It's like a retirement thing 20 years from now. That will be the
Yeah.
full-time thing. And we do a little bit and it's never meant to be a huge driver of income. That's not to say they don't take it serious. They do and do a great job of it. But it's like there's not as much urgency pressure of it. You went down path one of I'm doing this and you need it to make money because there's costs they got to pay. This is income for the family, all that. In hindsight, what do you think about this path?
It feels like knowing who I am as a person, knowing the life that we were living before we started the farm and all that, doesn't really feel like I had another option. It's not like I could have, it's not like saving up for another year would have made much of a difference. You know what I mean? Finances were pretty tight already, or they were moderately tight. Yeah, it really, I think I've just come to terms with the fact that it's like it was going to be this choice of it has to work or else. And that was just because of our situation, that was really the only path that we could comfortably go down without making some other serious life changes independent of the farm. And those life changes probably would have required some level of sacrifice in personal well-being, mental health. Yeah, I could have gone and gotten a great job and made 30, 40 bucks an hour doing whatever. And I tried doing that and I was absolutely miserable. And I think just this was the life that we've lived and trying to be happy and trying to set ourselves up to do what we wanted to do. And it was though the only path forward to make the farm actually happen.
Yeah, I respect that. And there's probably different approaches of if you're a programmer or something and you can make, I don't know, 200 grand a year, right? That's a different story than if you're making 50 grand a year and decide to start a business. One, potentially, depending on where you live, enables you to maybe build up savings at a more rapid rate. Where if you're coming out of college, if you're just working at Starbucks and you want to start a farm, I get your point of working more outside of the farm doesn't necessarily put you in a better position financially.
Yeah.
Because if that spread between income and what the farm could contribute, if it's not enormous, then what's the difference, right? Is that how you saw it? As I could keep doing what I'm doing, or I start the farm, but really we're not going to have a catastrophic, or dramatic is probably a better word, life change when we start the farm versus if we just keep going how we were?
Or less. Our finances have changed a little bit. Like they've decreased some since we've started the farm. And some of that's due to like external life choices that we made in order to make the farm possible. Like my wife quitting her part-time job or one of her part-time jobs because of us choosing to move out to the farm. It was just too far for her to commute. Combining that with having two kids that need to be parented. And so, yeah, at this point, we would either just continue to live the life that we were living, and there's not really anything that we could have changed to make this situation any less stressful other than maybe just working extremely hard. Like I could have maybe put in 60, 70 hours of work doing other things for a couple of years to save up the money. But like I said, I wouldn't be happy doing that. And at least now there's a sense of ownership of I have a much deeper motivation to put in those hours, not just to see that number in a bank account rise for the inevitable future, which, you know, if you're a saver, if you're a planner and you can think that far ahead, then great, go for it. But there's not really much that we would have been able to do to change the inevitable trajectory that things were going to go.
And I think that's really the American spirit at its heart. I saw that Kevin Costner Horizon movie recently, and yeah, I get there's a lot of tragedy and stuff involved, but
And you sat through that whole thing?
I liked
Heard it
it.
was long.
It
Okay.
was like 3 hours. Some people didn't. 181 minutes. I was just looking at, but I thought it was good. And there's this spirit of, and I'll put aside all the native people stuff because obviously that's tragic and it is what it is for a different day. But there were settlers going west against all odds into hostile territory, hostile conditions to try and make a better life. They had no assurances, no guarantees outside of the stuff that they brought with them. And their likely outcome in many cases was just like, we're dead, like it's death. And I don't want to compare what they did to what we do now as entrepreneurs, but there's a lot of similarity in the sense of at some point you just have to go for it. Like you can
Yeah.
never build a big enough security bubble around you. Because
Hmm.
if you could build this ultimate bubble, you just keep doing what built the bubble. If I could save up $1 million to start a farm, I might as well just keep doing whatever I was doing to get me the $1 million. And you just gotta go and take the risk of doing what you're doing. When in their case, they were a lot of those people moving west are immigrants. They're coming from terrible situations of poverty in other countries and starvation and maybe bad governments that they're under, and they're looking for a better way of life. If you're comfortable living on the East Coast back then and you have a successful business, there's no chance you're going west. And that's the parallel here is if you have a great cushy job that you love, you're not starting a farm. But if you're looking for a different life change, be it because you want to improve your conditions, maybe financially, maybe just emotionally, just maybe it's just the trajectory of your life, you go west figuratively and start that farm. And you're just going to have to take a risk. Like the risk is the price you pay for success if it works out. Because I'm
Yeah.
sure you can tell people now, if this was easy, everyone would do it, and it's just not. And you gotta take the shot. And if it doesn't work out, like in your case, and I hope it does, and I think it,
Got it better.
yeah, if it didn't, are you in that much of a worse off spot?
I would say the only thing that would make me possibly say yes, we're in a worse off spot is just that we have moving to a house. Like we live on the farm now. So it's not just, oh, the farm didn't work. And then, we can just let that part of the yard turn back into grass, which is that's what last year was. Like if last year wouldn't have worked out, then yeah, it would have been like, still got a job, nothing, no skin off my back. We at least gave it the old college try. And I'll just forever look at that patch of grass and be like, man, that could have been a farm or whatever. But now it's like, I live here. And so do I have a really awkward, tough conversation with landlord and say, hey, I still want to live here, but I don't want to do this whole thing that was the impetus for us moving out here and participating in kind of this whole journey and you backing us up and all this, because we wouldn't be living here and paying what we're paying and doing what we're doing if the farm wasn't involved. It's not like our living situation is completely independent of the farm. It is all rolled into one. And yeah, if the farm shut down tomorrow, there would be some really tough conversations that would have to be had. Or it would not, and then there would be like, all right, now where are we going to move to? Or how are we going to increase rent or whatever to make it worthwhile for them now that we're just strictly a tenant as opposed to a quasi business partner, if that makes sense. But at the end of the day, You can always find another house. I'm smart enough, skilled enough, have enough charisma that I can find another job. I'm scrappy enough that I'll make it work. It's not a life or death situation. So yeah, at the end of the day, if we have to have another couple years of of tight finances, if things totally go under, it's going to suck. But I think in the long run, it'll be like, it was worth a shot and it didn't work, and we just move on. When I'm not the first person to do that on this property, and the landlord doesn't like gripe and complain and have this like just absolute hatred for those other people. Like he mostly talks good about them. And so he's been through this before. So what makes me think that I'm going to be the one that is going to, and I'm not even the one that had the most money spent on it. That makes sense. Or most money invested into that. And maybe not. Actually, no, I'm definitely had more money invested into what we're doing. But it's not his first rodeo, and he's been in business a long time. He's probably had plenty deals go sour, plenty deals go south, and he just picks up and moves on, goes to the next thing. You know, ultimately we could do the same. Other people have done it. And you just look back, you would look back on those years as they were tough, but we learned a lot, or those are good memories, and move on. But really hoping that's not the story, and that it actually is like, oh, this was just the first couple of steps to getting us to where we inevitably want to be, whether it's like the size of the business or the money in the bank account or just the impact that we're having on the community.
Yeah, being 2.5 months into no, three,
Almost, yeah, we're almost April first Saturday. I think it was April 4th.
3.5 months into selling, and 7 months into this year. If somebody said I wanted to farm, what would be like the non-farm advice? The more, hey, is your head fully have a grasp of what you're taking on conversation you would have them? Or what would be like the spiel? Not like, hey, make sure, learn first or work at a farm, but like, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but hey, this is hard. This is all encompassing. Do you understand what you're taking on? What would be the points, the speech you'd give them if they're like, try and talk me out of this? I'm on the fence here.
Yeah, I would definitely say, yeah, this is all encompassing. This is your life, not just this is your job or this is your business that you're running, but and you understand like, this will become your life, at least for the foreseeable future. Maybe you can get to a point where you can hire help and you don't have to go to farmers markets every Saturday anymore, or, you step into a management role or whatever, but it's understand like this is the rest of your life, at least until you're done, whatever, whether it's death do us part, or it's you hit a retirement point or whatever, or you sell it and you cut your losses. I would say that would be the first thing. There's not going to be vacations for a while. There's not going to be date nights in the same way there used to be, where you can just go and party up. There's not going to be celebrating birthday parties where you just show up with a case of whatever and let's party. It's hey, I gotta go home early because I have to get up at five in the morning for farmers market. That would be my number one thing. Yeah, and then number two, I would say consider your overall lifestyle, both in what do you invest your money in? Because we can say, what do you spend your money on? But really, it's everything you spend is some sort of an investment. It's either an investment in your happiness, like your short-term happiness, or it's an investment in your future, whether it's retirement or, piece of property, or if it's your family. But I would say take a really good, hard look at the life that you are currently living, and how much are you willing to cut out? Like, how much are you willing to trim the fat, where your life literally becomes the bare bones? Right now, our life is essentially, or my life is essentially, try to be a good husband, try to be a good dad, and try to be a good farmer. And that's about it. I've been a pretty crappy friend, not because I've done anything wrong, but it's just a lack of being a friend. And yeah, those would be the two things. Like, understand this is going to be all encompassing, and realize that you're at least if you're doing it the way I've done it, that your life is going to get stripped back to the bare bones, both in like relationally, physically, economically. And if those aren't two things that you're willing to say yes to, then probably not going to be the best bet. Because I know people are like, I would love to farm. And it's, dude, you love going to Disney World every year. Like, I could be wrong, but I don't know too many farmers that are like big Disney World people like that. Not That could just be a lifestyle choice, but it's also just your priorities change for because they have to, or just because your ideals change or whatever. But if you're not willing to lay everything down, lay everything on the line to make this thing work, then yeah, I would say just have a garden, maybe buy a piece of property that you can have some chickens or a cow if you're really going for it, and just enjoy the hobby side of it instead of making it have to make money and making it a full-fledged business that will hopefully support you one day.
Yeah, I think the average person has no clue like about what this takes. I think what hearing your story has shed a lot of light on it's bursting maybe this bubble, right? It's Wonka in the chocolate factory, right? We're in Wonka land of
Mhm.
this dream in our head. Everybody wants a farm. Like it's like farms, boats, RVs, and gym equipment are like the things everybody wants, and then they acquire it, and then it depreciates once they move it from the retailer home. And they're like,
Yeah.
I, I don't really want that. Like the
Uh-huh.
idea is so nice in your head. It's a 10 in your head, and then you get up close and you're like, and you experience it, and you're like, oh, this is actually a one. People might get that reference. And it's you better know, like you said, you just better know it's going to take over your life. It's a child.
Mhm. Yeah.
It's part of your family. This is my farm. It lives next door. I have to take care of it 24/7
Yeah.
for the most part. When I think about what you're going through, one thing that makes everything a little bit easier, I don't want to say better, but easier is money, right? If your farm grew some money right now, life would be a lot more, it'd be a little easier, it'd be comfortable. You could breathe, right? It takes some stress out. Doesn't buy happiness, but it just buys room. Like I know
Yeah.
that from being in a business when it's tight. It's terrible. And part of the reason is your sales have to be at a certain level based upon your expenses for the business and your expenses at for your life. And if people are just catching up to the series now, it's not like you're living extravagant lifestyle and spending's out of control. So you need unrealistic expectations for the farm. It's actually the opposite. You guys are very trimmed back, very frugal, cost efficient, all that type of stuff. So the farm doesn't need to cover a lavish lifestyle. So it's a very realistic scenario. So if you say part of the struggle is lack of money, and what's the reason for lack of money? Part of it is not hitting the right total market stream, right? If you're only bringing in
Yeah.
$400 to $700 a week at the market, it's not enough for what you guys need. For somebody else, it might be great. For other people, it might not even be close. For you guys, it isn't enough. And I interviewed a farm this week, and they got going, and I'll say struck gold by selling to some bigger customers that just launched everything. So they hit the right market from day one after a little bit of getting going, and like they never had to go through these growing pains. If you zoom
Mhm.
out in hindsight and you say, okay, if I could change things over, do things differently, if you go back to the beginning of the season with the data you have now, how would you approach strengthening, building a higher cash flowing market stream? Would it be another farmer's market, like meaning two? Would it be a different farmer's market? Would it be several farmers markets? What could you realistically do? And I know you're also product limited too, so that it's not just, oh, if we sold at 10 markets, would be great because you wouldn't have
Yeah.
product to sell at them all. So in hindsight, like what could possibly, not that any of it would work, but what are some just brainstorm ideas of if we did this, maybe that would have helped?
Yeah. I think I'd say talking to chefs sooner. There was a big part of me that didn't want to talk to a chef until I knew I could deliver. And I think we've talked about that before. But I didn't want to have a meeting with the chef until I knew that I could leave that meeting and meet and I could deliver like the next week. And I think I finally just came to a point where it's like, I know I need to have that little extra buffer to spread out our risk. And I just came to the point where I'm going to have to start meeting with chefs and just tell them like, hey, get to know each other. Let me give you a little bit about what I can possibly do. And I'll hit you up in a month. And I wish I would have done that sooner, because then I would have been able to have a place that I could offload excess from the market if we don't sell out, or I would have had a place where I could have been like, you know what, instead of trying to thread the needle and only do one bed of this, yeah, let's just go ahead and do two or three beds, because I know at the end of the day, I can offload this to a chef, or I can keep that constant cash flow going, as opposed to trying to figure out how to sell enough of this at the market. So I think that's one thing that I wish I would have done, is just be willing to put myself out there a little sooner, to a lot sooner. And it like that, I remember the first restaurant I went to, talking to that first chef, like a legit real chef. Cause I had people that I had relationship with, and yeah, I'd love to buy some stuff. And if it doesn't happen, it's not like, hey man, I know you're just doing it. You're figuring it out and whatever. But then walking into the back of a restaurant, meeting with an actual like professional head chef. And when they ask you the question, so how much can we get? And it's, oh man, do I lie? I don't want to lie. I want to be an honest person in everything that I do. And I don't want to overcommit, but I also don't want to undersell. And so that was super scary, going to the unknown world of talking with the chef to do that. But then once I did it, it's, oh, like they're just people too. And they also understand like it's a new business, and they were probably at the same point, and they don't want to necessarily work with you because you're some world renowned farm. They just want to work with you because you're a farm and you have stuff. And like that barrier to entry is not as big as I thought it was. When to the point where I can bring stuff that I was not happy with, I'm going to bring these bunches of turnips and this arugula to a chef, and hopefully he doesn't critique it like Gordon Ramsay and tell me I'm an idiot sandwich. And they end up like raving about how great the quality is and how much they love the flavor. It's, oh my God, I way overthought this. So I would have definitely done that much, much sooner.
Let me pause you there. What if you had done that sooner? Would the advantage be that they could pick up your surplus that didn't get sold at the market?
Potentially, depending on the proximity to the market, or kind of on like when they would need it. There's a couple of chefs I've talked to that they're not going to bother with, I've got 2 pounds of arugula. There's, man, you're driving all the way to Atlanta. We're doing this much business. Don't even bother.
Yeah.
But there's other restaurants where it's, yeah, we'll take whatever you can get, as much or as little as it is. And so, yeah, being able to just, because like I said, even just meeting chefs, if you meet a chef and you talk to him and say, this is what I think I can do, this is where we're at, and you just be honest with them and yada, yada, yada. And then you can't deliver, like the worst case scenario is you have egg on your face because you're like, thought I could and I can't, sorry. And at the end of the day, like they're running their own business. They have other suppliers. Like they're not laying in bed thinking about you and how you couldn't deliver. Only you are. And so I remember where I was going with that, but yeah, I would have just started talking to as many people as I could have, just to build those relationships, get that cell number so I can shoot them a text, and so on and so forth, as opposed to waiting. Like it's like the difference between trying to take a prototype and shop it around to see if anybody wants to pick it up for production, as opposed to like waiting until you have a real true, not even like a beta version, but having like your full on, like real ready for market product. And then you try to shop it around to find someone who can produce it for you. It's no, like I should have taken the farm, and it still feels like it's in its beta stage, but when it was still like a concept, and maybe I had a proof of concept, which was a few bunches of turnips and a couple of bags of arugula, and be like, hey, this is what I can potentially do. Are you willing to say yes right now? And then hopefully it can grow. Yeah. I wish I would have seen that as thing, as opposed to as like a real sales, like a point of trying to land a sale, which is not what that is. It's more of let me build a relationship, let me make a contact. And then hopefully when I send them that first product list and a price sheet, that's when the sales part kicks in, if that makes sense.
So get that going early to open up options to sell to restaurants. Could you, is there anything realistic to do you think would have worked to sales? Say you, I know there was some reluctancy to add a farmer's market from the earliest conversations. In hindsight, say you had done that, how do you think that would have panned out? Let's assume you could have gotten in and all that type of stuff.
I think with my current bandwidth, there's just no way that I would have been able to do both of them anywhere close to well enough to make it worth it. If I had a little more time, like if I was crazy enough to just say, cut my losses and we're going full time. But then again, it's like more risk for potentially more reward. But if we're not incorporating much more risk, yeah, I just don't think two markets would really make it much better. Cause I have a potential option right now. I was approached on Saturday at the market by a restaurant who wants to buy my stuff and started buying my stuff, which is really cool, but also wants me to post up in their market. So it's like a restaurant and a kind of like a artisan market. They make sourdough. They have like a sugar case, all that really nice stuff. They approached me about, hey, we would love for you to set up one day a week in here so that we can show our customers that we're partnering with local farms. And then it's an opportunity for you to sell more stuff. And 6 months ago, 3 months ago, I would have been like, oh my gosh, yes, this is the ticket. I don't even have to try to get into a farmer's market. They're approaching me. And I came home and talked to Sarah about it. And I'm like, I don't think I can do that. I don't
Because
think
of
that would be a wise decision
why?
because of bandwidth, because of time.
Like meaning you'd have to
Because,
physically be there?
yeah, I would have to physically be there, or one of us would have to physically be there.
Would they let
Um,
you do a Jody Roebuck thing where you somehow acquire a cooler case and you stock it and put it there and it's, hey, your presence is there through a static cooler and then somebody just checks you out? Somebody checks the customer out, or do you physically have to be standing there? Because then that gets you in there without having to physically be there.
they might be open to that. And I will say in the past few years, they had that. Like they had a kind of like a produce aspect to their markets, similar to the coffee shop that I'm selling to now. And they don't have that anymore. So I would think that there's a reason why they don't have that anymore. If it was successful and it was working, they would probably still have it and they don't. And considering that they want me to be there to, like, for them, it's much more of a display of who they are. And then it also benefits me because I can sell. It's not like we want to have an offering for our customers for them to buy. It's more like we want to have the show of the farmer being here. And yeah, now ideally, yeah, it'd be great if I could just go in and just drop stuff off and leave. That would be far more tempting, especially if I could see that the sales picked up enough to really make it worth the drive on a Tuesday. And because even doing that with the coffee shop, it almost doesn't feel worth it for the small amount of sales that I get there doing that, like just dropping it off and they have it in their case and they sell it wholesale, or they buy it from me wholesale and then they turn around and sell it. And really the only reason I'm doing it is one, because they're like longtime friends, almost family. Like I'm kidding. At the end of the day, like it's not really a big revenue generator. I'm maybe making $100 a month, which I mean, yeah, that's 100 extra bucks I wasn't making, but it's not like I'm leaving money on the table. Like I'm not selling everything that I bring every week. And so it's, so I would be hesitant to just pick up another like wholesale quasi grocery or market place to drop off unless I knew that it could really generate enough sales to really make it worth it.
You said, 3 months ago you would have jumped on the opportunity. Now you're like,
Yeah.
because of bandwidth and stuff. What dollar amount per day buys a yes? Is it $300 Tuesday? Is it a $400 Tuesday? Is it a $200 Tuesday? Where,
Mm.
if they were like, hey, we bet you could do $500 worth of stuff every time you come, would you do it?
Oh, it would definitely be tempting.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, It's just because like my reputation, because the farm is like me. Like if I was working for Nicholas and he was like, "Hey, do you think you could do that?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure, I'll do it," because I'm not really taking much of the risk or like the hit to my reputation. I would probably be all over it. But just knowing that it would reflect, even if it's just to me, it's reflecting on me and how I'm running the business and what I can do. Because I know unless we're at a point where I really feel like I can do that, whether it's a time thing or it's a production thing, it's robbing Peter to pay Paul. So it's, yeah, I might be able to, if I'm only taking $500 a week worth of stuff right now, which is about where I'm at, we'll say six if you include a couple of little pickup. I'm only really delivering about $600 worth of stuff a week. If that's a $500 a week market, am I showing up to my farmer's market where I have like loyal customers who show up to only buy my stuff and I'm bringing the like just the sloppy seconds that's left over from that? And it's, sorry, I don't have much this week, but I'm just going to show up because I'm committed through the rest of the year and already paid for it. So it's, if I knew that I could do it and it wouldn't hamper what I'm doing at the market, then I would jump on it. But knowing right now that it's not, it would be more of a lateral move than an actual like step up in the business. And I don't need to do lateral moves right now. That
Yeah.
doesn't, I've got loyal customers. I've got everything going. I've got a routine. So the next moves that we really make have to be advancing the business and not just like pivoting.
Yeah, I'm just thinking about this as you're talking. I would want to know from them what they thought you could do in sales.
Yeah.
Like it'd be like, hey, I appreciate the opportunity. We're tight on product now. We're tight on time. I'm curious about it. What do you think we could sell a week? And if they see what that number is, and then it's that confirms or denies. And if it was a low number, then say it's 250, right? You're definitely not going to go stand there for 250. But it's like, all right, 250. We'd love to be a part of it. I can't be there, but I can get some of my product there. What could we do? I don't know. I just, maybe there's a conversation there to explore where you could get something out of it that is a low lift. That's, I get what you're saying on the lateral move, but is there some sort of like additive move where it doesn't take more bandwidth, doesn't deplete your product, doesn't hurt your farmer's market, but it somehow just puzzle piece fits in nicely enough where it's, we can get some gain, get rid of some surplus stuff, not low effort. I don't know. Maybe there's something
And
there.
yeah, and what that might be is maybe it's not every week. I think I always have this misconception that it's like if I'm going to do another move, like I have to be all in. This has to be a second market every single week. Like, why can't it be a once a month thing?
Yeah.
There's several farmers that don't show up to the market every week. They only come, yeah, the one guy that's doing like grass fed, grass finished regenerative beef, like he doesn't come to the market every single week, but he has loyal customers that are there. But I hit this one, then I hit that one. And if, but the problem is if I commit to every single week and maybe I have a handful of customers that are like, oh, we love eating here. And then we're also going to start shopping here. And then I feel obligated because, oh, now I have these loyal customers. And I don't want to let anybody down. But if I'm like, I just show up once a month or whenever I can, and it's just an added thing, that might be a much better deal. Like this is what we're going to agree on. I'm only going to show up when I have enough stuff to justify it.
Yeah.
And
Like,
if I don't, yeah. And if I don't have it, then it's not hampering your business. It's not like there's a whole chunk of your market that's just vacant and you're missing out on sales because they're not making anything off of me. They wouldn't charge me anything for it. It would just be like, hey, take that kind of like random corner where there's a cafe table, move the table, you set up your thing and you do it. And it just makes us look good. And so
right.
if it only makes them look good once a month or once now and then in 4 weeks, and then maybe it's in 3 weeks and then it's in 6 weeks, they might still be like, yeah, that works for us. We just want it to show our customers that we care.
It's like when you get one of those, like a surplus harvest. Like I know you mentioned in an email you have a bunch of pears coming online, right? If that harvest
Yeah.
is so heavy or something, you just can't move it all through a market or through other relationships, then it's, hey, can they take it or do something with it? So it sounds okay. So if we circle out, zoom out, one of the constraints is we're not generating enough income to have the buffer that we'd want. Another market isn't really an answer because it'd be too hard. Then it's
Yeah.
really we're ride or die with this market. And then now like the mission is how can we sell as much as we possibly can at this market? Because if you're like all in on this market, the bandwidth is all allocated to this market. Now it's just whether we make $300 there or $3,000, it's effectively getting the same effort. Let's try and get as much as we can out of it. Do you think that the sales this year you always want them to be higher? Are they lower because the market? Are they lower because you can't bring everything you'd want to bring?
I'd say it's a bit of both. I don't know if I'd say it's 50-50 because it varies from week to week, but some of it is it's like I can only sell so much. It's not like I'm selling out of my $500 worth of stuff in the first hour. And then I'm like, oh man, I'm just waving at people with an empty table. But it's pretty much down to the wire every week. I'm like trying to push those last 4 bags of arugula right at the very end, telling everyone how amazing they are. You better grab them before they sell out. And we got 15 minutes left in the market. And so I'm definitely, I feel like I'm really like generating a good amount of sales based upon the market. And, but at the same time, if I had salad mix right now, I'd probably be able to generate close to another $100 a market in salad mix because people love the salad mix. And, oh, when are you going to have it back again? And this and that, whatever. If I had this or I had that, I imagine if I had carrots, if I can dial in carrots and be able to do carrots year round, I will, or I could theoretically sell them within reason, yeah, easily be able to make probably close to $100 or definitely more than $100 worth of carrots every market. And if I could get salad and carrot production into gear, you're looking at roughly about $250 extra every single market. And then as you start to dial other things in, and then, like when carrots stopped, I saw a pretty noticeable drop off. Like the people that were coming and were so pumped about carrots, suddenly they were like, they would walk into the booth and they'd be so excited and, oh, I'll grab this. And once they start, blah, blah, and then they come and they look, it almost seems like they're like, I want to support him. And so we'll just grab a couple of things where they were dropping 30, $40. Now they're spending like 10. And so I think, but then with that, if I have that production going and then people can expect to get the things that they really want that are like high value things that people really want, hoping that energy will increase and get more buzz and more people will come. And then it's almost like if I can get production up, I can really support the people that we do have, which will then justify more production. And then they slowly work each other up higher and higher as we go. In the same way that Cassie talked about a couple of weeks ago, of just like she was ride or die with her market and it grew with her. And that's what I'm hoping is that I can let this market grow with us because this has been like a pivotal year in the market where they're really trying to double down on their being farmers and focusing on the farmers and really building it back up after it's slumped for a few years.
Yeah, it's almost like you can't rule out the market yet as a bad market. I don't know, it's like whoever, it's Justin Fields. I've had a bunch of coaches and terrible offensive coordinators, and I'm like, I don't know, is he really good or not? We don't know. Because there's all these extenuating circumstances that are muddling up the situation. And that's where you're at. Like maybe the market has a lot more to give, but you're the throttle on it right now because you're just
Yeah.
not bringing what you need. So I hear where you're coming from. So and thinking back to that Cassie story, that's the other thing I did think of that myself as you're talking here. It's where she started small, grew with her market, grew with her customer base, grew over time. And I forget how much she said they do now, maybe $3,000 a market or something like that.
Yeah. She said between 2 and 3,000 a market with 600 to 700 people that come through. And we're easily hitting those numbers, if not more. So you don't want to compare apples to oranges. It's her market, different place, whatever. But if that's possible with that amount of people, then yeah, like what could we do if we were the premier vendor at that market? Yeah, maybe everybody else's stuff is what it is, but it's if we become, and I would argue to say we're already that. Like when I have customers who come out in the rain or it's expected to rain or whatever, and they're like, I'm coming just to buy your stuff. Like I hear that from at least one or two people almost every week. Like I'm here to buy your stuff. So it's like, all right, we're obviously doing something right here because people are coming every week saying, I'm here just for you. And I'm selling out of stuff that other people aren't, and I'm charging double the price. I'm doing something right in conjunction. Like I'm meeting a need in this market that could potentially increase if we can get our production back in order, which is what I'm hoping for the fall. Not cutting my losses for summer, but just saying like summer, it is what it is. We're not going to really try and like ramp things up. We're just going to ride out these like $400-500 weeks for the next month or two or the next month. And then come September, we're like having that crop plan in place. Like we're thinking ahead. We're thinking 2-3 months down the road. The seed's already been bought. More seed was bought than we needed. And we're going to really try to make this fall almost a bit of a reset in a way. And like, this is going to be like a real premiere of what we can possibly do on the farm.
Yeah, this is the challenge of business. It's you see where the potential is, you see where you can get to. It potentially takes time to get there. In the meantime, it's intense and it's tough. And you have to stay the course to get to the better place right at the end. Like I have to make it there to reap the rewards. So in the meantime, you're like, okay, what can I do that's scrappy, that doesn't take me off the path to getting to the long-term plan, but helps me survive another day, another week, to just keep going down the road. So it's this two things. It's I'm fighting battles and I'm in a war. I know where the war plan is and where I'm going for that. But in the meantime, it's all these mini battles to try and get through. And that's where these selling a little bit here to chefs, the market in the restaurant, selling some on the online store, all these little things are like, they're maybe not core parts of the business for the next 3 or 4 years as you view it, but it's like, it helps now and it doesn't deter now.
And another thing, and this is hard to do when you have a fixed number in your bank account that you can't just snap your fingers and change. But what I try to constantly remind myself of, and Nicholas does a good job of helping me with this too, is put it in perspective. Dude, you've been doing this for 4 months. This is all brand new. You're a new farmer, not even made it through your first full season yet. And I haven't missed a farmer's market. I'm consistently selling. I've been consistent between 400 and 750 every single week, built up a loyal customer base. And I'm doing all of this part-time on roughly about a quarter acre, like an actual growing space. That's really about all we're growing on. Like remeasured everything. And it's, oh my God, we're on like really, I thought we were on a third. We're really only on a quarter, but I'm killing it compared to from talking to some other farmers. Like we're killing it this year. But unfortunately, just because, to circle back to the beginning of this episode, because of the lifestyle that we lived and the choices that we made before we started the farm, I needed the farm to perform maybe more than the average person does. If you're a couple and you're both part-time and you have a decent job and you can afford to not make any money for a couple of years, then it's fine. We're still learning and growing. It's, I need this thing to, this is the difference between paying the electric bill or not. And so there's a lot of pressure, but when I step back and I put things in perspective, we're killing it. Another farmer shared their numbers with me the other day in an email. And they said, hey, here's over the last 11 years, here's what our revenue was, and here's what our expenses were. And it realizes, man, I've been doing this for 3.5 months, and I've already surpassed what they made in their whole first year. And I'm like, not even really, and I'm doing it part-time by myself. And so we're all now, obviously there's other farms that have done a lot better. I heard from another farm, like we did $30,000 in sales our first year. And it was also a couple that was doing it together. I don't know their financial situation. Everybody's situation is totally different. So you can't really compare numbers, but if you do compare numbers, I'm not doing half bad. It's just, and I try to keep that in the front of my mind when it's like, oh my God, it's going to suck today. We didn't make enough money. But you haven't missed the market. You've been here every single week. You always have something. And that's got to count for something in the long run. And hopefully that'll at least count for keeping us in the fight, keeping us in the game. and just to, like you said, fight another day and keep the ball rolling.
Absolutely. I think there's a lot to hang your hat on. The finances are what they are. That's almost like a different metric to measure, right? Like we can dissect this and say, how are we measuring? I don't want to say success, but level of achievement here. And like the
Mhm.
finance side, it's on the heat graph, we're somewhere in the middle. Like we're not getting killed, we're not getting rich. But on other success metrics of market consistency, bam, like you're at the top, like you've done it all the time, like you've survived mentally, like you're still doing this, the crops are growing, you're still harvesting. So all these other things are score really high if we have all these little graphs of where things are.
Yeah.
It's just always too bad. Like money's the one that just can be often the most real stressful because it's just other people need it from you.
Yeah.
And you can't have a heart to heart conversation with electric company to say,
Yeah.
next month.
But yeah. And, but if there are places where you can have that heart to heart conversation and maybe take a little bit of the edge off and give you a little breathing room, which I had to do this past week, it sucks. And it's a huge shot to the pride. But if you can do it and then you can give yourself that little bit of wiggle room, it's oh, okay. Okay. Not only can we fight another day, but we can fight another day with a little bit more health on that health bar at the top of the video game. And it's like being willing to just say money is money and we'll try to make it work. And if it doesn't work, I almost say we'll cross that bridge when we get there. Because the reality of it is like we've every bill gotten paid every single month. Sometimes we get paid a little late and you have to pay a penalty, but our kids aren't hungry. Cars are still running. We're still alive. I don't have a landlord beating down my door, wondering where my check is, so on and so forth. I try to remember that like money is the one thing that's like right here in front of your face all the time and you can't ignore it. But in the same way, it's like we always see like the love of money is the root of all evil. And we always think of that as this, yeah, when you're greedy and all you can think about is wanting to have more and more. But I'm coming to the realization that it's like by me constantly fixating on, are we going to make rent? Are we going to hit it at the end of the month? I'm equally worshiping the dollar bill instead of just choosing to say, we've made it this far. We've made it every month up until this point, and we're just going to have to trust that it's going to happen. And then if it doesn't, let's put out that fire when we can, because it's not adding anything. By me stressing about it, it's not making more money. Man, if stress could create money, I would be a billionaire.
Yeah, heat up
And,
your greenhouse, right?
oh my God, yeah. But they can't. And at some point, you just have to say, it is what it is. I'm going to try to not think about it and just think about the things that I can change and just keep getting in those reps, keep moving forward, keep showing up to the game every Saturday and just do the best we can. And at the end of the season, we'll see what the batting average looks like.